Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Ashtotra Shatashi Srimad Sangayasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Kantraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, entitled Status Quo, Chapter 32, Entanglement and Fruitive Activities, and on text 33. Yatendriya Prithagvara Arto Bahuganashayah Eko Nanyayate Tadvad Bhagavan Shastravartmabhihi Yatendriya Prithagvara Arto Bahuganashayah Eko Nanyayate Tadvad Bhagavan Shastra Vartmabhihi Yatindriyai Prithagvara Arto Bahuganashayah Eko Nanyayate Tadvad Bhagavan Shastra Vartmabhihi Ita Yata, as, Indriyae, by the senses, Pritaktwaraye, in different ways, Artaha, an object, Bahuguna, many qualities, Ashrayaha, endowed with, Ekaha, one, Nana, differently, Iyate, is perceived, Tadvat, similarly, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shastra Vartmabihi, according to different scriptural injunctions. Translation. A single object is appreciated differently by different senses due to its having different qualities. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one, but according to different scriptural injunctions, he appears to be different. Purport. It appears that by following the path of Jnana Yoga, or empiric philosophical speculation, one reaches the impersonal Brahman, whereas by executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness, one enriches his faith in and devotion to the personality of Godhead. But it is stated here that both Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga are meant for reaching the same destination, the personality of Godhead. By the process of Jnana Yoga, the same personality of Godhead appears to be impersonal, as the same object appears to be different when perceived by different senses. The Supreme Lord appears to be impersonal by mental speculation. A hill appears cloudy from a distance, and one who does not know may speculate that the hill is a cloud. Actually, it is not a cloud, it is a big hill. One has to learn from authority that the sight of a cloud is not actually a cloud but a hill. If one makes a little more progress, then instead of a cloud he sees the hill and something green. When one actually approaches the hill, he will see many varieties. Another example is in perceiving milk. When we see milk, we see that it is white. When we taste it, it appears that the milk is very palatable. When we touch milk, it appears very cold. When we smell milk, it appears to have a very good flavor. And when we hear, we understand that it is called milk. Perceiving milk with different senses, we say that it is something white, something very delicious, something very aromatic, and so on. Actually, it is milk. Similarly, those who are trying to find the Supreme Godhead by mental speculation may approach the bodily effulgence or then personal Brahman. And those who are trying to find the Supreme Godhead by yoga practice may find him as the localized Supersoul. But those who are directly trying to approach the Supreme Truth by practice of Bhakti Yoga can see him face to face as the Supreme Person. Ultimately, the Supreme Person is the destination of all different processes. The fortunate person who, by following the principles of Scriptures, becomes completely purified of all material contamination, surrenders unto the Supreme Lord as everything. Just as one can appreciate the real taste of milk with the tongue and not with the eyes, nostrils, or ears, one can similarly appreciate the Absolute Truth perfectly and with all relishable pleasure only through one path, devotional service. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya Mama Vijanati. If one wants to understand the Absolute Truth in perfection, he must take to devotional service. Of course, no one could understand the Absolute Truth in all perfection. That is not possible for the infinitesimal living entities. But the highest point of understanding by the living entity is reached by discharge of devotional service, not otherwise. By following various scriptural paths, one may come to the impersonal effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The transcendental pleasure derived from merging with or understanding the impersonal Brahman is very extensive, because Brahman is ananta. Tad Brahman Nishkalam Anantam. Brahmananda is unlimited. But that unlimited pleasure can also be surpassed. That is the nature of the transcendence. The unlimited can be surpassed also, and that higher platform is Krishna. When one deals directly with Krishna, the mellow and the humor relished by reciprocation of devotional service is incomparable, even with the pleasure derived from transcendental Brahman. Prabodhananda Saraswati therefore says that Kaivalya, the Brahman pleasure, is undoubtedly very great and is appreciated by many philosophers, but to a devotee who has understood how to derive pleasure from exchanging devotional service with the Lord, this unlimited Brahman appears to be hellish. One should try, therefore, to transcend even the Brahman pleasure in order to approach the position of dealing with Krishna face to face. As the mind is the center of all activities of the senses, Krishna is called the master of the senses, Rishikesh. The process is to fix the mind on Rishikesh, or Krishna, as Maharaj Ambarish did, Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo. Bhakti is the basic principle of all processes. Without bhakti, neither Gyan Yoga nor Ashtanga Yoga can be successful. And unless one approaches Krishna, the principles of self-realization have no ultimate destination. Om Ekantavadandasya Granjana Shavakya Chakshuvanavitamina Tasmai Shigravai Namaha Kam Karivachalam Bhangam Langai Tegirim Yakribatam Ham Vande Shigrun Diritanam Vancha Kapaduvishta Kripasinda Vevacha Patitanam Pavane Bhyo Vaishnavevyo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Translation again. A single object is appreciated differently by different senses due to its having different qualities. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one, but according to different scriptural injunctions, he appears to be different. So yeah, these things that Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport, these particular examples, he mentions a mountain, approaching a mountain, and mistaking it as a cloud, and also the milk, how we perceive milk in different ways. But yeah, we could have that experience that, like, wherever we are, we're in America, or whether we're in America, or we're in India, or we're in China. There's so many mountains all over the world, but if we were to approach one of those mountains, and from a distance it may seem, oh, hey, this is that you could hardly even see the mountain, it's just like a cloud. Oh, is it a cloud? Like somehow or other, I stopped off in China, and I was with this Chinese devotee, and he brought me to a park, and he knew the park, and I've never been to the park, and I don't know anything about the park, but he was very familiar with it. So from a distance, I could look and I could see, hey, it just looks like a big cloud. Are you sure there's a park there, Prabhu? Is that really a park? I could ask him, right? He said, yeah, that's a park. And then, I'm just using it as an example. I actually could see the mountain, but if we come closer, or if I come closer to the mountain, or if any of in your lives you approach a mountain, you come closer, you'll see gradually that, oh, it's a mountain. And on that mountain there may be so many trails and people and things going on there. Different varieties of activities happening. People exercising, people doing this, people doing that, so many things. So similarly, that people somehow or other may come to the conclusion by mental speculation that, okay, God, they have this sense that, okay, He's just a light, right? Just that impersonal effulgence. But past that effulgence is the person, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And similarly with the milk, that, yes, Prabhupada's making the point that we approach milk in different ways, right? We may taste it tastes very nice, especially, I remember when we were getting the milk from the farm, our Escondido farm, we were getting milk, and we're offering it to Sri Sri Radha Giridhari in the evenings, the hot milk with a little sugar. I remember all the brahmacharis, everybody was lining up. like crazy to take that milk, and it was, nowadays it's a little slower. No one's so interested in what we're offering in the evening now. But when we had that milk, everybody was going crazy. Hopefully we could get some more of that milk. But yeah, we through our perception of taste, or for the tongue, right? We taste it. Oh, it tastes very nice. And through the sense of smell, right? It smells very nice and may look nice, right? Through the eyes, like that. And actually, it's milk. So Prabhupada's making the point that similarly, those who are trying to find Krishna by mental speculation may approach the bodily effulgence and personal Brahman. And those who are trying to find the Supreme Godhead by yoga practice may find him as a localized supersoul. But those who are directly trying to approach the Supreme Truth by the practice of bhakti yoga can see him face to face as the Supreme Person. So the idea is that we, as Vaishnavas, or as aspiring Vaishnavas, or practitioners of Krishna consciousness, following the srimadbhagavatam, we accept the absolute truth in full, as that verse in the Bhagavatam says. How does it go? About the Brahman Paramat. Yeah, Vedante tat vidas tattvam yajganam advyam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shadbite. So that the learned transcendentals have concluded that there are three aspects of the absolute truth, right? Then personal aspect, the localized supersoul in everybody's heart, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's the full conception of the Supreme Person, Krishna. Whereas the Brahmavadis, or those who have only come so far to understand Krishna as the impersonal feature, right? They just don't know about the personal feature, like the four Kumaras. Those were the famous Brahmavadis. And those personalities are not considered to be offensive, the Brahmavadis. They just don't know about the Supreme Person, Krishna. Whereas the Mayavadis, they are offensive. Why? Because they may know something of Krishna, the person, but they just reject it out and out. They reject it. And Prabhupada would call those people sometimes demons. He would call them rascals. He would call them demons. And interesting enough is, even these personalities were quite big people in this world. Like one was the, I think, Prime Minister of India or something, Dr. Radhakrishna or something. And Prabhupada would indirectly, like in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, I was reading, it's quite like a punch, right in the beginning. Prabhupada says that the scholarly demons, he calls them, the scholarly demons say that, Krishna, it's not that Krishna you have to surrender to, it's the unborn within Krishna, right? And he's referring there to Dr. Radhakrishna, because that was his main, his commentary of Bhagavad Gita. The scholarly demons. So yeah, the people, they tried to get away from this idea of having to surrender to a personal God. Why? Because there's too much responsibility. If we're all one, then that means I could have some fun, right? We're all one, we could have some fun. Means that I don't really have to answer to anybody. I could more or less do whatever I want, and I don't have to answer to anybody. And that's why it's very attractive to the conditioned souls, this idea of impersonalism, and also atheism. Atheism and personalism, very attractive, because there's no one to answer to. There's no consequences for our actions in the next life. I mean, we try to be careful in this life, right? No one wants to go to prison. No one wants to go to jail for their, nefarious activities. We try to. But ultimately, in the next life, there's no consequences. So that makes it very nice. I could do whatever I want. Because either they think I'm God or they think there's no God. So, but once one has the understanding that there is a God, and there specifically there is a personal God, Krishna, then that presents some difficulties. And why is that? Because that means that the conditioned soul has to give up their God program, means impersonalist, Mayavadi program, or their no God program, their atheistic program. And what do they have to do? What does it say in the end of Bhagavad Gita? You know that shloka, Jamal? It starts with an S. Huh? Surrender, but I'm talking about the Sanskrit. Sarva, you know that one? Sarva? Yeah, okay, you got to memorize that one. It's a Prabhupada would say that all the time. Sarva dhammam prityaja mame kam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarvapapebho mokshishami masacha. That Krishna is saying, surrender to me, give up all other forms of religion. I shall protect you. Do not worry, do not fear. I shall protect you from all sinful reactions. In this mudra, Srimati Radharani on the altar here, she has her hand up. See that? It means don't worry. But you have to surrender and then not worry. But if we don't surrender, then we have a lot to worry about. So first we surrender and then there's no worries. So, Sarvadharma Prityaja. So that's the difficulty that presents, that us accepting the personal God, that means we have to surrender. And of course, it's not a bad thing, it's actually a positive thing, it's actually quite wonderful to surrender. Why? Because that is our nature, that is our constitutional, position, that is who we are. So if we act according to who we are, we're actually happy. Just like if a husband who's married to his wife and he has responsibilities for his wife and his children, if he acts according to those responsibilities in a Krishna conscious way, in a dutiful way, taking care of his family, this and that, then they'll be happy, right? But if he's just a rascal and doesn't care, he won't be happy. So it's according to our nature, that's in our best interest to surrender to Krishna. But the difficulties present themselves because in the process of surrendering to Krishna, we may find ourselves experiencing some difficulties or some problems, personal problems, whatever this, that. And not to speak, we don't have only ourselves to deal with. We also have to deal with others. That's the fun part, right? You got to deal with others too. It's called adhyatmic miseries, right? That's sufferings caused by your own self, right? And then there's adibhotik, which is others, right? And there's adidaivic, which is from the natural disasters. So, like I was talking to this devotee some time ago, and she was telling me that her son, I'm not saying who she is because she probably wouldn't like that, but she's saying that her son, who is now 26, she just found out that for the last 10 years of his life or so, he's been taking drugs, and she didn't know. And it was, marijuana. And she was telling me about this, and she's a devotee, and somehow or other her husband's Muslim. But she chants 16 rounds and all that. And she said that she was just devastated, absolutely devastated. She said she was devastated, and her husband was devastated, and the husband, I spent so much time trying to train him as a nice young man, and now he's just smoking pot and this and that, and lost his job, and then some people nowadays, you say this within people's mind, are like, oh well, so what? He's smoking pot. Like, who cares? It's legal. It's because it's legal in California. You know, if you go drive down the street, you see all the billboards, right? It says free delivery. You know, we deliver the marijuana to you. You don't even have to move from your couch. You know. Yeah, the bed. Yeah, you don't have to move. You know, we make it easy for you, and they have all this, but you got to pay. You know. So some people think, oh, what's you know? Even some people nowadays they'll even with their children, you know, their teenage children, you know, mother, father, they smoke pot, so also they smoke pot with the teenagers. And that. So, but somehow or other, within this devotee's mind, she was just devastated, like it just really, you know, bothered her. And then, you know, she's starting to cry too, you know, she's starting to cry, talking to me. And she was asking me, what should I do? And I said, well, I mean, what can you do? I said, what you could do is you could just, with your own preaching, right, you could try to inspire him, and hopefully some of those seeds, not marijuana seeds, some of those seeds that you plant in his mind, will, over time, you know, he might think of that. It might come to his mind later. Oh, my mother said this, and this is actually good information. I should snap out of it. I should get my life, clean up my act. So through your speaking, you may inspire him, and also through your example, and through your prayers, you know, to Krishna. And aside from that, I said, what can you do? I mean, not much you could do. And she said, oh yeah, you're right. And I was telling her that that's difficulties that are the difficulties that your son is making you go through. That's one thing that we have to deal with in life, but also our own difficulties, you know, their own struggles, their own problems. And you know, devotees have this sometimes experience that, you know, they want to be a good devotee, you know, they want to be good devotees, and they want to be, you know, whatever, happy, good, you know, respectful, dutiful, humble, poetic, silent. They don't want to eat, you know, 10 pakoras instead of one, you know. I mean, it means they want to eat one pakora. They don't want to eat 10 pakoras, you know, whatever it is. They don't want certain mundane thoughts, you know, rattling around in their consciousness, whatever the thing may be. But some devotees have the experience that they just, oh, well, what can I do? You know, it's like, I'm trying my best, more or less. I'm trying to be a good devotee. I'm trying to be a good person. But what can I do? I could, whatever I'm doing, I'm doing, and I'm leaving the rest up to Krishna, praying to Krishna. So that's, as Javita Prabhu mentioned, that's why the other day, which is a good point, that's why Kali Yuga, it's the process is chanting the holy names, right? Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam kalau nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatunita. Because in this age, it's very easy to call out in many ways. Because, you know, look at the world, so many horrible things happening, so many difficulties. And even within ourselves, sometimes we're struggling so much, you know, with this, with that, so many miseries and problems. So it's very easy to call out. Whereas in other ages, maybe wouldn't be so easy. Things were nicer. So that's what the beauty of Kali Yuga. That's the beauty of Kali Yuga that we could call out. So, so whatever the case may be, the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam is always pointing in the same direction, pointing us in the same direction, and that is bhaktyamam abhijanati. That if we want to understand Krishna in perfection, then we have to take to devotional service. And without taking to devotional service, then we won't understand Krishna. And if we don't understand Krishna, that means we won't understand ourselves either. And what type of life is that, where we don't even understand ourselves? It means it's a life where we are lost. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we're going. We don't know who God is. We don't know what the goal of life is. What to speak of even getting close to any of those things. We don't know. It's practically a a miserable, unfortunate life. That's what happens. So, but if we take to devotional service, then gradually, right, Chaito Darpana Marjanam, we will understand who we are, who is Krishna, what is the goal of life, and we'll actually make progress in those directions. Gradually, just as the sun, right? Now the sun is out, it's shining through these doors here, these windowed doors. But before, just a few hours ago, it was dark. So you go outside, it's dark. And what to speak of if there was on a moonless night and all the electricity went out? It's absolutely dark, pitch dark, right? Pitch black. So the sun, it gradually rises up. And then, little more light, and then everything becomes very clear. Like some people, like Bajranarayan Swami said, when he was a young boy, he said he was in Laguna Beach. He was, so him and his brother, they just watched a scary movie. Those wonderful scary movies. They're just absolutely horrible. Those movies are like beyond horrible. And they're getting worse too nowadays. You can't even imagine how these scary movies, what they do in those movies. But anyways, so he watched one of those movies, and then he was like 6 years old. So then and he had his own room. So then he goes into his room, and it's a dark, stormy night, right? And rain and thunder, and he was just all freaked out because of all that movie. His older brother made him watch a movie. So then he was there, and then all of a sudden, he see what's perceived within his mind as this like a monster, the claw, against the window, and it's like screeching the window like this, making the noise, and he's just absolutely terrified because he thinks it's this monster or something. So he's just like in his bed, practically not breathing, just trying to. And then he wakes up in the morning. And what does he see? He sees that it was a tree branch that fell off and it got caught and it was on the window making it, that was all it was. So in other words, when the light came out, he saw what it actually was. And it was nothing to be afraid of. So similarly in ignorance, one is in fear of many things. One is in fear of old age. One is in fear of death. One is fear of so many different things. But when the sun comes out, in other words, when the consciousness becomes clear or purified or Krishnized, then what happens is we realize we see things for what they really are. And that is, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's all good. In one sense. So this, but the wonderful or the amazing thing about the illusory energy of Krishna or Maya is that it makes us perceive things in a wrong way, right? And therefore, the definition of Maya, right? That which is not. It's not. It's like it looks like it, but it's actually not. So when a person's an illusion, they think, oh, this is the fear, oh, death, oh my God, that is so fearful, that is so scary. No, it's not. Or old age, oh my God, that is so, no, it's not. But due to Maya, we think it is, but it's not. And that is the amazing thing about Maya. So also, Maya, she makes within our minds, the Maya within our minds makes things look very attractive, like the illusory energy looks so attractive. But actually it's not. It's not attractive when actually analyzed and coming close to it, what to speak of experiencing it. And we all have that realization to some degree, and that's why people become devotees. A lot of the times they think, man, I engaged in Maya, and I got close to Maya, and I found out a lot of suffering there, a lot of misery, and it wasn't as attractive as I thought it was. But the power of Maya is that although understanding that, and coming to Krishna, then, still there's that whole tug-of-war thing going. But anyways, whatever the case, is that when the sun rises, all the we see things for what they are. So there's that nice verse that I'm going to learn, but I haven't learned, but Javita Prabhu learned. Yeah. 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 And you know the English. I mean, you have a poetry too. It's nice. Yeah.
When the sun is invisible, with its nil, and the sun and the moon, when the moon is invisible, with its nil, and the sun is long down from the sky, and the ocean of darkness envelop this world, and the timorous fear they might die. But that thick fall of gloom is the one swept away when the first signs of sunrise appear, and the dawning of day is assurance to all that in truth there's nothing to fear. In a similar way, when illusion holds sway, and the soul has forgotten his Lord, and the darkness of ignorance covers his heart, sin and suffering are his reward. But as soon as he chants Krishna's name even once, in a manner that doesn't offend, then his ignorance flees like the darkness of dawn, and the sin and the suffering end. So there's nothing to fear. For the sun from the name has appeared with the power divine. In your heart may that sun benefit it for all who must fit, and
Jai. Jai. Yeah, it was a nice one.
I'm sorry?
We recite it every day. Yeah. So, Prabodhananda Saraswati says, Kalvaya Nadakayate, that the impersonal merging is hellish. So, I mean, that pleasure derived from merging is quite a pleasure. That impersonal realization and that merging is quite a pleasure. Way far beyond the temporary nature of any type of the best sense gratification. Even in the material world and the heavenly planets, way far beyond that. But he says it's hellish. So that means that Prabodhananda Saraswati, he has to reject everything. You have to reject the material world, the pleasure it derived there, reject the heavenly planets, the pleasure derived there, because he also says that, right? It's just like sky flowers, the heavenly planets. And then he goes up and he says, oh, I'm rejecting the impersonal Brahman. So all these pleasures, you could say, because you get a certain pleasure here in this place, right, Earth. You get a higher pleasure in the heavenly planets, and you get even a higher pleasure merging. But he rejects all those. He rejects all those, and he says he's going to Krishna, right? The pleasure derived from serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the highest. So that's what we want to do. We want to move up, reject this, reject that, and then experience that happiness in relation to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And serving. And about Rishikesh, the master of the senses, the thing is that, people may try to control their senses, but actually they can't. We can't control our senses, actually. But if we engage our senses in Krishna's service, Krishna will control them for us. He's the one controlling. So that's the perfect example of Maharaj Ambarish, right? He engaged all of his senses, his eyes in seeing the beautiful forms of the deities, his hands in sweeping and cleansing the temple, his feet in going to the temple, his ears in hearing the glories of Krishna, kirtan, chanting, his tongue in tasting prasadam, the tulsi leaves that have been offered to Krishna. Tulsi is very important, tulsi leaves. Getting those tulsi leaves from the offering. And in this way he was fully engaged. And he led the perfect example of full engagement in Krishna consciousness. And he and many others are leading this example, and we're meant to follow so we could reach the ultimate destination of self-realization in Krishna realization. So does anyone have any questions or comments? Jamal? Janaran? Yes.
Well, it seems to me that the most important aspect of the purport that has been repeated 3 or 4 times in this chapter
Yeah.
is our mind inability at the present moment, after offensive chanting of 45 to 50 years, not being able to see Krishna face to face. So my question is, how many disciples of Srila Prabhupada are seeing Krishna face to face?
Well, maybe we could do a forum, do a forum with all the Prabhupada disciples. How many of you are seeing Krishna face to face?
I've never met anybody except perhaps, Srila Prabhupada, of course, who stated that he can see Krishna face to face, except perhaps for going for the winter.
Yeah, I mean,
For 6 months as a brahmachari.
a lot of the times devotees, even if they are seeing Krishna face to face, somehow or other they won't tell people that,
Well, as Indra Prabhu told me once, as we were going to Mathura in a taxi, we had shared a taxi for different purposes. And one of the persons was a godbrother who had become Narayan Maharaj Seva.
Yeah.
And so Indra became angry because this gentleman godbrother was preaching to Indra Prabhu, well, since you're going to Mathura, you must go and see him.
Okay.
Indra turned around and he said, even if he is a pure devotee, do you have the eyes to see?
Yeah.
So that's a good point. We have to, how can we determine
Yeah.
unless they actually say
Yeah.
we don't have the eyes to see?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of us analyzing, hey, is he really seeing Krishna? Then yeah. I mean, how can we say? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. That was brought up in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's pastimes, that there was, he brought that up a few times. There was people who were saying that, oh, I want to meet your father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and a few kind of prominent people within Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life, who he was preaching to. And Saraswati Thakur, he would say, you haven't seen Bhaktivinoda Thakur. he would get on the case, you haven't seen Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Because he saw him, the external feature of him, but he didn't actually see him in the full.
You can see him as a manjari.
Yeah.
This is similarly as our vision improves with glancing at the deities.
Yeah.
That exchange will.
Yeah, so a lot of devotees won't say they saw Krishna, but, I mean, some, they come out and they say that. But it's not very common. Yeah, I mean, like serious devotees saying that, yes, I've realized myself, I've realized Krishna, but sometimes it happens. But like sometimes our acharyas, right? They'll like reveal some of those in their writings, who they are, and. But God brothers, I mean, Prabhupada disciples, yeah, they usually don't do that. Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking if we try our level best to follow the Hari Bhakti Jivan, then we will be more apt to achieve this goal.
Yeah. Did you have a comment?
I was thinking about when you speak about Gurudhamma and about like philosophy of bhakti is so like all inclusive, so we can understand
Yeah, you could say aspect of Krishna, yeah. Because some people, they're not, like some Christian saints or something, they don't really know about Krishna, the person, but they may have a realization about, they may, for example, be off the bodily conceptual life, detached from sense gratification, experiencing some pleasure in their relationship with God, but a lot of the times it's an impersonal type of understanding of God, because there's, within their scriptures, there's not much of that personal, details of what God looks like, and things like that. Of course, a lot of them are worshiping Jesus, and they, there's pictures of Jesus that people have made and stuff like that. So maybe there's more of a personal connection there, but in terms of Krishna, yeah, that's a little.
I remember before I read this book. You remember this book, The Way of the Pilgrim? You remember that?
The guy was just praying.
Yeah, this Christian guy. He in Russia. I'm not sure if it was a historical account or based on reality of Krishna life. But it was very dramatic. It was like this sincere Christian, and he was reading the Bible, and he came across the passage, once you should pray without ceasing. And so he starts going around with different priests and asking, well, how do I do this? And nobody could actually tell him. Got to do so many other things, how do you pray without ceasing, So he comes to what they call starets, which is maybe Russian or something for a spiritual master, realized soul. And he says, yeah, it's the Jesus prayer, oh Lord Jesus, Son of God, and Lord, Son of a sinner. This is one verse right there. And so I said, now you go and you just keep reciting that on the rosary for 3 hours every day for a week and come back. So he started chanting on the rosary, and he came back and said, yeah, it was a little hard at first, but finally I got to do it, it's all over the rosary. Okay, now I'm with 6 hours a day. So now, he's starting to, I'm sleeping, it's going on my mind, everything. Okay, now I'm do it 9 hours a day. So by that time, after he came back, he said, yeah, it's just going on stuff. It doesn't stop. Even when I'm not chanting, both of it is going on. That's what it means. But by this time, he's been purified, and he didn't want to do anything else. He basically became a sannyasi, a traveling monk, And he starts traveling with a little backpack with some bread,
So you said it was going on in his mind?
By that time, it was just in his heart.
Yeah.
He couldn't stop it. This is what it means. He was calling out to Jesus. And then the rest of the book is his adventures that he had, meeting people and things like that.
No, Rejavadu, she. Oh, sorry, you.
Well, what I'm saying is that that's in the Bible. That's Christianity. But where do you find Christians doing that? Prabhupada would often say, as you say, in an open forum, fixed audience, yes, you can chant whatever your name is, it's fine. But the thing is, Harinama, Harinama, that has to be there. Now, this isn't exactly that. Krishna did say Christ and Krishna's name is the same. They're famous for saying Christ and Krishna, Jesus, Krishna, Krishna, there's that. So they're chanting the name of, they're actually
Yeah, Rajavadu, she, those of you who remember her, she said that she always, she would tell them, oh, you hear that? And they always say, oh, well, what are you talking about? Oh, you don't hear that? No, what are you talking about, Rajavadu? She says, oh, the kirtan, Prabhupada chanting. In my mind, you could think of Prabhupada, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You know, she said she heard that. That's nice. But one thing, last thing I want to say is that devotees asked Prabhupada, oh, what happens to the sincere Christians? Yeah. And then Prabhupada said, oh, they joined the Hare Krishna movement. And he said, just like all of you, he said, you are all sincere, Christians coming from that background, and you joined the movement. So, anyways, whatever. It's just a little thing. But all right, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
And of course, in the Vedic conception, the universe is created by the Supreme Being, by Krishna. But basically, the description in the Vedas is that the earth is considered to be at the center of a relatively small structure, and the various planets, sun and moon and so forth, are circling around the earth. And out at some distance, there's a series. Please don't do anything more with the microphones, because it's going to make that noise again. So either it works or it doesn't, but let's just leave it. So, going out to a certain distance, there's a series of shells. Actually, it's described there are 7 shells covering the universe, according to the Vedic picture. And in the Vedic literature, it's described that there are many universes existing within the causal ocean, and each one is surrounded by a series of shells like this. And these are practically innumerable. There are various descriptions given. For example, they're compared to bubbles of foam within the ocean. You can just imagine how many bubbles of foam there are in the ocean. Or they're compared to the mustard seeds in a barrel of mustard seeds, and so on. Well, in other parts of the world, this same conception existed. So, in the ancient Mediterranean area, where the Greek and Roman civilizations and so on existed, people also had practically the same conception of the universe. As far as I'm aware, the idea of many universes floating within a causal ocean was not described outside of India, although maybe people did have that idea, but it just hasn't come down to us so prominently. But the ancient Greeks, for example, also had the idea of a universe which was contained within a shell. The Earth was at the center, and the different planets were moving around the Earth. So that conception was there. Now, in the Vedic literature, there's one basic description of the universe, which in the books we have is presented mainly in the 5th canto. And that describes a number of unique features, such as a universal mountain, which we call Mount Sumeru, and so on. You also find that in very ancient times, people in many parts of the world had this idea of Mount Meru. For example, the Greeks had this idea. They called it Mount Olympus. And by the time we come to the Greek civilization, they had placed it in Greece, a sort of parochial viewpoint. But the Greeks were fond of Greece, so they wanted everything to be there. So their Mount Olympus, though, really corresponds to Mount Meru, because it's a mountain on top of which the gods are dwelling. Zeus and so on lived on top of Olympus. So likewise, on top of Mount Meru, there are the dwelling places of different demigods and so forth. Also, the Scandinavians had the same idea. I once saw a map of the universe according to the ancient Norse, the Vikings and so forth. And there was a central island with a ring-shaped ocean around it, and in the center of that island there was a vast mountain. And on top of that mountain there was what they called Asgard, which is the dwelling place of the gods, with Thor and so on and so forth. So this conception of the universe used to be found all over the world. You can trace it in many different cultures. So that's one conception which was existing in ancient times, but also in ancient times there's existing the conception of the earth as a globe and the planets as moving around the earth in different orbits. So that's also there in Vedic literature. There are books such as the Surya Siddhanta, which describe the earth as a globe, and they describe how the different planets orbit around the earth. And these texts give mathematical details for calculating where the planets are at any given time. This is of interest to astrologers because they do their astrological calculations based on where the planets are within the zodiac. So these scriptures also provide rules for calculating when eclipses of the sun and moon take place. And you can do more sophisticated things. You can calculate when the sun and the moon will be at 90 degrees from one another and different things like this. So the relationship between the fifth canto type description of the universe and these descriptions of the earth as a globe with the planets going around is a whole subject of discussion, which I can also get into. But just to give a short historical summary of what happened. As I was saying, in the ancient world, the Greeks had the same basic idea. Then, after the Greeks came the Romans, who didn't really do much in the way of astronomical investigation. They were mainly interested in politics. And then, of course, the Roman Empire collapsed, and in the Middle Ages, nobody did very much because they all became Christians. And so they weren't actually very much interested in things such as astronomy. But then came the Renaissance, which is very famous, when in Italy and also other parts of Europe, people began to rediscover the writings of the ancient Greeks. Those had been lost in Europe during the Middle Ages, but the Arabs kept them intact, more or less. Not really intact, because probably